Do you remember Sloane from Entourage?
I do.
Somebody once said I look like her. And I was like,
You don't look like Sloane from Entourage.
Yeah, I'm aware, Chase. That's the point. I'm aware I don't look like her. Do you think I look like Sandra Bullock?
You look like Dianna Russini.
Well, just fake a compliment. Just fake it.
Why would I fake a compliment to you when you've been so mean to me lately?
I don't think I've been mean to you. I think you've been sensitive. Welcome into Scoop City. I'm the Athletic Senior NFL Insider, Dianna Russini.
And I'm Chase Daniel, played 14 years in the National Football League.
It is a whole nother round of intensity. We've got the divisional round, the best weekend of football yet.
Yeah.
By the way,
right. I like Championship Sunday.
I'm all about this one. This is the weekend that always has those blockbusters. We've got all four home teams, legit Super Bowl contenders in this one. The road team, strong performances last week. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not as clear as I usually feel heading into this weekend, and things always surprise you this weekend.
There's only one game I'm not clear about. It's Bills Ravens. All the others are locks.
That is obviously the blockbuster. I can't wait to dive into that one with you. But the story that everyone is talking about right now is this head coach vacancy with the Dallas Cowboys. The Mike McCarthy news obviously broke earlier in the week, and it was a little surprising to people that follow the team because most of us just thought that Jerry would run it back. But in the end, they are now on the hunt for a new head coach, and Deion Sanders seems to be the name that has been associated with them. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about other coaching situations with the Jets, with the Bears, with the Raiders. And then we're also going to go into the things that we are watching this weekend that we can almost guarantee or maybe even hope that we'll be discussing on Monday once this weekend wraps up. But let's get right to this. Here's what I'm hearing around the league. Well, only the Dallas Cowboys could steal all the headlines as we lead into one of the biggest weekends in January, yet all anyone is talking about is this idea that Jerry Jones called Deion Sanders to see if he'd be interested in this Dallas Cowboys job. So without me telling you any intel or info, I say that to you. Do you say real or fake?
Real.
Okay,
maybe.
So it's my favorite game to play right now because I've been doing it with people I've been talking to around the league that have nothing to do with the Cowboys, that are just, part of the NFL. And it's so interesting how some are like, oh, definitely. Jerry's going to make this happen. This is fireworks. This is what he's in for. This is great business. And then there's this other world that's like, that is the most fraudulent story that's going on right now.
Really?
There's leverage at play here. There's contract situations at Colorado. It's just funny. Everybody has their theories of what this is. And I think deep down, like really deep down, people are like, wait, could this happen?
Yeah, there's always that chance, I know.
And you could convince yourself when you start going through it that maybe it could work. So I have some thoughts. I have some information from what people around the league have been saying. But I thought, why don't we call up our buddy Bruce Feldman, who is the college football insider for The Athletic. He's on Fox. You see him everywhere. And he talks to everybody in the college world. So let's bring him on and get some more insight, more information on whether or not there's some truth to this Deion Sanders and the Dallas Cowboys. Well, Bruce, welcome back to Scoop City. The last time you were here, we told you that we really enjoyed your visit. Little did you know that we were going to hit you up like 10 days later. So back here on the show, thanks for hanging. And look, the playoffs are here. Everyone's paying attention to what's going on this weekend. But really, the story that everyone is talking about are the Dallas Cowboys, of course. And Deion Sanders and whether or not this is true. Just based on conversations you're having in the college space right now with coaches, with people who know the sport so well, what are you hearing? What's going on?
Yeah, I think Deion he's kind of a content gold mine for us. First of all, he's been ratings gold, certainly for us at Fox Sports, certainly for everybody who's put on his games. And he's made that program, which was completely off the map. It had been left for dead before he took the job. He made them nationally relevant. He also made them a winner. They went from 1 win 2 years ago to 9 wins this year. And I know they didn't they got blown out in the bowl game and the Alamo Bowl against BYU, but he's been a huge success. Now it's turning the page, though. You have his son, Shador, both sons leaving. You obviously have Travis Hunter, who's like a son to him. And now if there's genuine interest from the Cowboys. And look, we know there's a lot of people interviewing for that position. What would Deion really want to do? I think for everything I've heard, CU, really wants to keep him, because without him, I think it's almost like they're hitting the reset button, and they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
When it gets to NFL, though, right? Like, it's a different animal, and I feel like when you get to the NFL, there's certain teams that you can't really put your rubber stamp on. You know what I mean? Like, there's owners involved, and no bigger owner than Jerry Jones, just obviously the GM, obviously the decision maker. And when you're at Colorado, he gets to run that program exactly how he wants, no matter what, because he became Colorado. Colorado's prime's Colorado. And for me, what is the likelihood that he takes this job? Because remember, he talked last week and said he wanted to play with both of his sons, Shiloh and Shedeur. Cowboys currently pick number 12. Shedeur Sanders, one of the top quarterbacks, I would assume, in this next draft. How does that whole thing, does that play into his decision as well?
I don't know how they could untangle it, and Dianna would certainly know this better than me, but like with the Dak Prescott contract situation, like, is there any chance that they're going to be in the market for somebody else playing quarterback than Dak for a while? The Raiders, to me, would have been a more viable destination if the Raiders actually had some serious interest in Deion, maybe different story. Like, I think that's part of it. I think if it was an easier fit where he could coach Shedeur, I mean, Shiloh, I don't know, Shiloh may be a late round pick. I think that's a different deal. But I think if it was a chance to coach Shedeur, I think that would put it in a way different place for him mentally. I know this, I was able to cover the Alamo Bowl a couple of weeks ago, and I know the relationship he has, not just with the two sons and Travis Hunter, but also there's a bunch of other kids who've been with him since pre-Colorado, since pre-Jackson State, who it's the last chapter with him, because that was really the last walk. It was a huge emotional deal for him. I think he was overwhelmed by it. He talked a lot about that. So maybe it is a turning the page moment, but I think also you could see the impact it's had on him to catch players and play a pivotal role in their development at that stage of their lives. I'm not saying you can't have big impact in the NFL, but I feel like it's a different piece of it. It's just, here's a guy now who's proven everything, I think, as a college coach. Whoever was doubting him going into college, yeah, he didn't get them to the playoff. They didn't win a national title, but they finished tied for first in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They had an amazing run in 2 years. Is the NFL the next big challenge for him? If it fits, I could see him being very tempted by it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, do you guys remember when Colorado named him the head coach? It was shocking a bit, yeah, right? Like, what are they doing? There are tons of questions about whether or not this could work, and they embraced him with open arms, right? Brought him in, like, look, this is your show. You do it the way you want to do it, whether this was the norm or not, right? Because this we've never seen anything like this. The way he went down with this from the cameras, the entertainment factor to all of this, to the whole idea with his family being around all the time. So then, when you think of that opportunity that Colorado gave him, I just wonder if you're Deion, who's known to be a very loyal person, right? Yeah. Anyone that is close to Deion has shared that with me over the years, that he's just one of those guys. He's one of those friends you want. If he loves you, and he takes you in hard. Is he going to be comfortable walking away from a program that he got up and running off its feet to go to the NFL and pick that? I think that's some of the things that people are talking about in the NFL right now. And then you have this other layer, right? Can it work? Can a coach that's never done this work as a head coach for the Dallas Cowboys under Jerry Jones? And I feel like more people around the league and in football have been convincing themselves of this. But Bruce, there's definitely a camp that I'm talking to that's like, this is not real. This is not real. They talked.
Really?
This is all flirting. This is all... Jerry was not expecting Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys to go separate ways. The plan was to bring him back. They did not have a plan in place here. So a lot of this was scrambling, from what I can gather, of just, I need to figure out how to fix this quickly.
Wow.
And so now we're seeing, the coaches get called in. Robert Saleh is going to meet with them over the weekend. Leslie Frazier, right? We'll start to see more names. Kellen Moore is going to meet with them on Friday before the divisional round. So he's got his eyes on Kellen Moore. But this Deion factor, I think, is going to weigh over the NFL until they make a decision on who's going to be the next head coach. So I guess my last question in regards to Deion for you. Do you think that this is something that would be too quick for him? Knowing what he's done in Colorado, do you think this jump is too fast for a guy that really just learned how to be a head coach?
It's an interesting question. I think the part that makes me say no, it wouldn't be too quick is because it really was this final chapter for so many guys. It's not just for Shedeur and Shiloh, his other son. It's not just for Travis Hunter. Those guys are done. They have one of their best players, a guy named Cam Silman-Craig. He's a safety. I don't know if he probably will be a free agent. He's not the biggest guy, but he was kind of the heart and soul of that team. He was a guy who didn't just play for Deion at Jackson State. He played for him in high school too. And so you have there's a bunch of guys who have those relationships with him, and they're done at CU. Now, there's other guys who have committed to play there, and there's also a whole lot of guys who are on staff who probably wouldn't be in Boulder, Colorado, if not for Deion. I don't know how many of those guys, even if everything was going to work out in the NFL, if he could bring them all with him, and so it's a different kind of dynamic. The part that I think is, maybe different for him than say, like Urban Meyer was, he just went in the College Football Hall of Fame, wildly successful college coach, had no clue about the NFL though. Deion obviously knows the NFL world. He knows the NFL culture. He would come in with such a level of credibility that most college coaches wouldn't have because Deion Sanders.
Imagine him with Micah Parsons, right? Like we talk about all the things that come with him. Like he'll have like Micah will be like, yes, tell me, whatever you want to do. And then Deion will probably be like, oh, by the way, I'll go on the podcast after practice today, right? Like that's not good. Totally. That's where I feel like this could be a match.
Yeah, I just feel like though, Diana, Prime is a CEO type coach, right? He doesn't coordinate offense or defense. So my biggest thing is I could see this working if he has legitimate coordinators, right? Because if you're the one building the fabric of the team, I think there's really not a lot of people better than Prime. But then if you have a really good offensive coordinator, which I think Pat Shurmur is there right now, I don't know if he follows league. He has league success, and then Warren Sapp's on the staff, and then the defensive coordinator. I think something of those along those lines, if you pair him with the right coordinators, right? That's what everyone says when this is hiring cycle. It's like, hey, I have an offensive coordinator, I have a defensive coordinator. So I don't know. I'm back and forth on it. I think it could work given the right coordinators.
And his coordinator at the DC he hired, one of the best moves he's made since he got there. He hired an unknown defensive coordinator, Robert Livingston, who had spent 12 years in the Bengals, worked his way up to be the Bengals safeties coach. He'd never been a DC anywhere. And he was a terrific hire. He's a rising star in business. And so Deion has a very good feel for, Chase, you mentioned Warren Sapp. Damian Lewis was, former Seahawks D-line coach, longtime NFL player. He's done a really good job of hiring some really good fits around him. Again, I would guess it's probably a long shot, especially some of the things, Danny, that world, especially Jerry Jones' world, much better than I do. But, how that would fit would be interesting. I don't know.
What stands out is he knows how to hire, right? That's huge. That's what owners are asking right now in all of these coach interviews that are going down. Bruce, since I have you here, I've been trying to read the tea leaves, but obviously also trying to have conversations about Marcus Freeman. And I feel like the tone has been changing lately, as if Chicago really wants to get this or make something happen with him. And I know he's focused on the national championship and he has a lot going on at this moment. But what do you know about Marcus's overall just happiness at Notre Dame? And we know the school wants him there. Do you see that being realistic, of him leaving the college space to be an NFL head coach?
I'd be very surprised on this one if Marcus left to go be the Bears head coach. Obviously, the Bears president, Kevin Warren, was the president of the Big Ten, I could totally see he would be very enamored with Marcus. Marcus has really grown in the last couple of years as a head coach. And he put together a terrific staff. I mean, it was really interesting to watch. A couple of weeks ago, he plays Georgia. Kirby Smart's won 2 national titles, and Marcus Freeman was 1 step or 2 steps ahead of him. He outfoxed him almost at every turn. And you see a guy who has total confidence both in his players and staff. He's a terrific recruiter. And he was a Jim Tressel protege, but I think right now, and our Notre Dame beat writer, Pete Sampson, really put this well, I think, in a really smart way for The Athletic, was he's coached very differently from Jim Tressel. He's very aggressive. They go for it more on 4th down. They play a ton of man coverage. You see a lot of fake punts, fake field goals. He is in his sweet spot right now. And win or lose, and they're almost a 10-point underdog against Ohio State. But I think this program is really ascending. I think Marcus knows people around Notre Dame, gave him a big opportunity, and he is thriving in it. He's got a pretty young family, 6 kids. They had the chance to either go to Baton Rouge or to be the DC or Notre Dame. He chose Notre Dame because I think they felt comfortable with the fit there. Everything has gone, exceptionally well. He's 39. He just turned 39 last week. The NFL will be there for him if he wants it 5 years from now. A lot of people have taken the Bears job, and it has not worked out.
Yeah, I've talked to people close to him, too, that have told me that he's been pretty patient in his career. He's had tons of different opportunities that I guess the public doesn't even know about, that he's turned down and decided to either continue to grow in the position he's in, and in some cases even almost take a step back to just continue that coaching growth. So that makes all the sense in the world. I could certainly see the Chicago Bears wanting him, and maybe perhaps he just not being ready at this moment. So, all right, Bruce, you know it's that crazy time of year when we're bringing you on an NFL show to talk about all the college craziness. So if Deion becomes the Dallas Cowboys head coach, though, this may become a regular thing. So
we'll miss him in the college football world for sure, especially the people.
I know. I think everyone will. But what a show it will be. It will break I think it'll break the internet and the NFL.
It would be the lead of every show,
every day.
Every day. It had to
okay,
be.
Now I'm in. I'm all in. All right, Bruce, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so we might as well just continue to talk about the Dallas Cowboys because you've got Kellen Moore, who appears to be another hot candidate. And my thought was, okay, he knows the Cowboys well. He spent 8 years there. He's obviously helped this Philadelphia Eagles offense compared to what we saw last year. They've really taken a step forward. Doesn't help that he has Saquon Barkley as well. Do you think Kellen Moore is a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys as a head coach? And I know you know him, too, so you kind of can take it all in.
Yeah, I was texting with him this morning about certain things. He's excited about the chance to interview. But most importantly, his focus was squarely on the Rams. And I think that's where it should be. And it's just an insane rule a little bit because he's interviewing Friday and they play Sunday. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, how do we figure out how to balance this? Because what I don't want, and I do know him, and I know his brother because his brother's the offensive coordinator at the University of Missouri where I went. And I've known Kellen for a while because he played at the same time that I did. And I don't want this to be oh my gosh, if the Eagles offense looks stale, this is all on Kellen Moore because he was interviewing for the Dallas Cowboys job. That's ridiculous. Let's just stop that right here and there, okay? Secondly, I know that he would take the job, right, in an instant. And I do think he's a good candidate for a couple reasons. One, I was listening to Jason Garrett. I don't know if you saw the interview. I listened to Jason Garrett. It was an interview that he gave maybe a week or two ago. It was about the Dallas Cowboys head coach opening. And he said something I thought was so interesting. He mentioned that with this Dallas Cowboys job comes a lot of stuff outside of football, right? It's not just, hey, you're a good offensive mind or you're a good defensive mind. You have to be a leader of men, all that stuff. What comes with it is there's a way that you have to handle the owner, Jerry Jones. And some teams, you can have an owner's meeting once a week. It can be 15 minutes, and they stay out of your business. And that's great, and that works for some teams. This team, the Dallas Cowboys, is not like that. Your owner is the GM, and he is the person who has the final say. Jerry does. So there has to be a really good working relationship on how to handle the owner, because the owner's in your business probably a lot more than other jobs. And you have to be able to have a relationship that goes back. And Kellen Moore, not only Kellen Moore really owes Jerry Jones just about everything that he has as a coach, because he played from him from 15 to 17. They hired him as the quarterback coach. He was OC there for 4 or 5 years, I believe. And they were top 6 in almost every major category offensively when he was there. And so he gets a Chargers job, but Brandon Staley gets fired. And now he gets this Eagles job. It's great. I think he makes a lot of sense, because I think that he can handle Jerry Jones. That's the number one thing. And I say handle, right?
No, it's not. It's a certain type of personality, right?
Yes.
Like when we've discussed this coaching cycle, and we've talked about some of the type of the lead candidates in this and the type of personalities that some of these organizations are looking for, it's very different than what I believe could work in Dallas, right?
Yeah,
Meaning
100%.
Those very bold, outspoken, strong-willed type coaches, I don't necessarily are the best fit to work with Jerry Jones. Does that mean that's the best for their football product? That's debatable, right? I think Dallas loses out sometimes on some of the great coaches.
Oh, 100%.
Because of that
100.
personality factor
Great
and all
take,
this,
yes.
right? To having to make that work. There are some people around the league who say if you work under Jerry, he has to feel like he can control you, right? And in the Deion Sanders example, you could say, well, you can't control Deion Sanders. Well, you may not be able to control Deion Sanders, but Deion Sanders is going to be new to head coaching in the NFL. Who do you think he's going to lean on? He's going to lean on Jerry, right?
No doubt.
There's a little bit of control there. So I think Kellen actually, and this is a compliment to Kellen, because of that loyalty, because he came up through Dallas as a coach, there's going to be that loyalty as well. There's going to be a personality fit, and he understands it. He watched Jason Garrett.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. And you said it, but I want to piggyback is the Jason Garrett thing. Like Jason Garrett, backup quarterback, really strong-minded guy, played for Dallas. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world. It's Kellen Moore. It's Kellen Moore 2.0, right? It's like you played for Dallas. You coached for them actually before you got the head coaching job. You were a backup quarterback. You actually played with Dak. Okay, and helped Dak along. And another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is you don't think that Dak Prescott, the most expensive quarterback in the history of the NFL, has a little bit of say in Jerry's ear, because Jerry loves him. He gave him all the money in the world. Of course he does. And Dak's going to go to bat for Kellen. This makes all the sense in the world. He's got to be one of the lead candidates for sure.
Definitely. So meantime, Robert Saleh, as we mentioned, is going to be meeting with Dallas in person. He obviously has that ability because he's not employed. So he's able to do that. Robert Saleh will also met with the Las Vegas Raiders. And Chase, it's been really interesting just talking to people around the league too about these interviews, because I think a lot of people are curious how this works. Well, obviously a lot of these teams have to do it over Zoom. All right, so what does that look like? The Chicago Bears, for example, that first round, with the exception of Mike McCarthy, who they flew in privately and sat with him in person, was all virtual. And
well, the Mike McCarthy thing is weird too. They flew him in private. That's not normally how they do things.
No.
Is that an indication on how serious they are about him? You just glossed over that. I'm like,
absolutely. They interviewed Mike Vrabel, and they did it over Zoom, right? And they had the ability to fly him in. Yeah, that tells you where that is, and the seriousness, and the stage they're at, right? Because this thing is starting to, for sure. Everything's starting to heat up here. It's been slow, because the league wants it to slow down, and that's why all these rules are in place. But I've come to find out that all the organizations that are looking for head coaches, they actually all do it a little differently. They all have their own twists on how they've been doing these interviews. Okay, so one organization, when you say, I will meet with you, they send you a packet, an email with all the information you need about the Zoom, with basically the bios of everybody you're going to meet with, what they are about, who they are, what they've accomplished, and then a list of questions, dozens of questions about who you grew up, looking up to, who's your hero, who's your favorite player, just really basic football questions.
Really?
And they're sent out to some of these candidates before their interview, so they at least can prep.
That's funny.
And then other organizations are like, here's the link. See you there.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I figured. Like, hey, you're not getting anything. You come and impress us. You know, we're interviewing you, but you're interviewing us too. Like, that's how I'd imagine. Like, hey, I'd have 1,000 questions for the Chicago Bears if I'm Mike McCarthy more than anything else. Like, Correct. What do you do in this situation? Like, but I guess
Jets,
it's like if you've been a first time, how's the ownership working with you, buddy? Like all that stuff.
He's like, whoever's sitting there is like, all right, Woody, just bring up Brick and Jack. Just do it.
Your son's
just
coming to the meeting too?
Just kidding, Jets fans. Stop freaking out.
Stop freaking out.
Kidding them, kind of. So we talked about this last show too. There's one team that was asking a lot of just personal questions and then just stopped and said, okay, look up on the screen. Explain what you would do in this situation and how you'd use your timeouts, right? Kind of try to keep them on their toes while they're in the middle of just having conversations.
These are grown men trying to trick other grown men.
It's unbelievable, right?
This whole process is ridiculous.
Meanwhile, the people asking the questions probably don't even know the right answer, right?
No, they don't. They don't know what they want half the time.
So I love finding out about this stuff because it is interesting on how different businesses, we'll call them, different clubs are approaching this. And we've talked about it, since this started, where, you see the Jets and the Bears, just the list is so long. And we talked with Bruce about the whole Marcus Freeman thing in Chicago. I want to watch that. I'm not saying that because I know something's happening. I'm saying it because there's just things that make sense to me when I think of Marcus Freeman there.
I think it's a complete leverage play for Freeman to get paid at Notre Dame. You don't think it's? You think it's real?
Yeah. I think there's more there. I think we're going to learn more after. I think soon as that game wraps up and he gets a second to catch his breath, we're going to find out more. But until then, the smart teams are going to have plans. You have to have a plan, right? Like if you're Kevin Warren, you can't sit there going, Marcus is our guy, and then you lose Ben Johnson to the Raiders, and Marcus turns you down. Then you're in trouble.
Tell me a situation where a college coach has ever really been super successful in the NFL, other than Pete Carroll. Like there has not been a lot. Like look at the Urban Meyer debacle, right? Like that's just one, but like there's a lot of college coaches.
You've seen in
Chip
and out.
Kelly.
I've seen Bill O'Brien go in and out. I mean, he's NFL, but like he went back to college, and now he's at Boston College. I can't believe Billy didn't get any opportunities this round. I figured someone would call Bill O'Brien. He knows what he's doing. He's a smart offensive mind. Yeah. You see what he's doing at Boston College right now? He's doing a great job.
I have. No, we beat him at Mizzou, so yeah, I saw that for sure.
I love when he gets spicy. Spicy Chase. So, look, we're going to find out a lot more after January 20th. Those in-person interviews will begin, and this thing will start shaking out. So, we need to talk about what's going down this weekend. We've got the divisional round. When we get back, I want to do it differently. I don't want to go through each game and preview how you think this game is going to go. I would rather us just go through this as what are you watching in this and what do you think we're going to be talking about on Monday through all four of these games. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, back here on Scoop City, let's get to the games this weekend. Let's just start with the biggest one, right? Let's just start with the headliner that everyone's going to be watching in the AFC, the number 3 Baltimore Ravens against the number 2 Buffalo Bills, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS and Paramount Plus to catch all the action. Okay, here is what the headlines are going to be on Monday about this game. This is what I'm predicting. How Lamar Jackson handles the nerves and the Bills fans. Okay, so you saw last game, you saw Lamar it took a little bit right out of the gate, and they were running the ball a lot. In fact, he ran all over the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think they do that on purpose. I think Monken calls a game to get his quarterback comfortable, and it makes all the sense in the world. Lamar playing in Buffalo, I have underestimated the effect of that fan base, of that crowd. We know they're loud, we know they're wild. But when I spoke to people from Denver after that game about what that environment sounded like and really felt like, it is jarring if you haven't been around it. It's like a college
atmosphere. It's massive.
It really is.
Like massively loud. I've played a few times up in Buffalo, but yeah, I'm with you. They're going to be jumping through tables. They're going to be nice and liquored up. It's a night game. I mean, 6:30 Eastern. They're going to have all day to tailgate and jump through tables and light people on fire while they're jumping on tables like they did last year. It's wild.
Yeah. And, you know, I was talking to somebody in the league the other day about that game. I said, what do you think the biggest factor is going to be? And I'm waiting for this, like, deep dive into, you know, can the Bills secondary slow up some of the weapons on the outside when the run game slowed down up front, you know? And he said it to me, and it makes all the sense in the world. Can this Bills defense contain Lamar Jackson? It's the story of every game with this Ravens team because Lamar is playing the best football he has all season long. He's healthy. He's rested. He's thin. Everything that we've talked about on the show and giving him all the flowers over the last few weeks. It's why this game is so big because you've got two quarterbacks playing the best football. But when it comes down to it, what is going to be the plan for Sean McDermott? What is he going to do opposite of what we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers do? Because whatever that game plan was the furthest thing to what the Bills need to be doing in terms of just the effort and just the outlook on how they think they can keep them in the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. This game is, for me, all about Lamar Jackson. When you look at Josh Allen career in the playoffs, right? He's 6-5. He has like over 327 total yards per game, which is an NFL record. It's the highest in NFL history, yards per game. Josh Allen has it, 28 touchdowns, only 7 turnovers. And you go to Lamar Jackson's side, right? 3-4 in the playoffs. I think he's averaging 300 total yards per game, but only 11 touchdowns, 9 turnovers. So that's the story of the game. The story is Lamar Jackson. We think we know that Josh Allen is going to play well because technically speaking, in most of his playoff games, he has played really well. And he has almost 30 touchdowns in 11 playoff games. So that's never been the story. The story has been and will continue to be until Lamar Jackson beats a good team in the playoffs in this divisional round. He's only been to the AFC Championship game once. And look, I think last week's game against the Steelers, it didn't do anything for me. It didn't do anything for the narrative that, Lamar Jackson can win in the play. They were supposed to beat that team, right? Yep. This is a team for me that Lamar is saying, hey, this is a legitimate team we're facing. If Lamar can win this game because of Lamar Jackson, not because of Derrick Henry, and it's unfortunate, right? Because Derrick Henry's 1,900 yards rushing. How does that factor into it? But if Lamar can win this game for me, that'll go a long way into me thinking like, hey, all right, playoff legacy, let's go.
Yeah, and I do think that this situation is different with the addition of Derrick Henry, knowing that it doesn't have to all be on Lamar this time. Every year before, it's been on his shoulders to figure it out, especially on the ground. He's running more, thanks to his mom, who encouraged him to run the ball more. But just having that threat and the Bills being well aware that's going to be a problem for them, figuring out that way to slow and stop them down. So, all right, what about you? So that's going to be my Monday morning headline.
Yeah. Mine is going to be, let's go over to the Texans-Chiefs game, right? Number 4.
Okay, so you want to go the first game of the weekend.
Yeah, first game of the weekend, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. It's on ESPN, so Troy's going to call it, and Joe Buck, which I like them a lot. I think they're really good at what they do. And I try not to get X's and O's on this game because I went back and I rewatched all of the Texans versus Chiefs game. So I watched Texans offense versus Chiefs defense, and I watched Texans defense versus Chiefs offense. And I came away with one just overwhelming theme of this game. It's going to legitimately come down to the Texans defense versus the Chiefs offense. I don't know if the offense for the Texans can score points, but what I do know is this game was a lot closer last time they played than a lot of people probably think. All right, Mahomes threw for 270 yards, but 115 of those were against man coverage and pick plays, like out of the backfield by the running back. So you take those away, you're able to stop it. And I came up with 3 keys to victory for me because I think this is the one. This is if the Texans can pull off the upset of the century, these 3 things happen. Okay, number 1, I don't think the Texans defense can allow easy completions to Mahomes. That's how Mahomes in this offense for the Chiefs, that's how they have gotten through this year. It's not really throwing the ball deep down the field. It's not doing all this other stuff, right? Mahomes is actually averaging his lowest yards per attempt in his entire career would be this year. So you can't just allow these easy zone completions. The Chiefs had like 3 or 4 of them to DeAndre Hopkins last time they played, moving the chains, 3rd and 3, just easy completions, no busting coverage, none of that. The other thing I think you have to do, and especially against the Texans, you have to be able to contain Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. If you keep Mahomes in the pocket, and we're not sitting here saying, oh, Mahomes ran for 50 yards and a touchdown like last time, I think they win the game. And the third is, can the Texans DBs play man coverage against the Chiefs receivers and tight ends? And they did it a lot the first game, and it was a 5-point game with 9 minutes left in the game. And that's sort of how they got them, is they played man, but they had these pick plays that come through. So for me, I'm looking at you, Texans defense. Can they figure out a way to just get some turnovers? Like, that's another thing too, Diana, before I let you go. Like, the Chiefs have not turned the football over in 7 straight games. It's the longest streak, 6-game streak from weeks 2 to 7 in 2017. Like 7 years ago. No team's done it since 7 years ago. No turnovers in 7 straight games. The Texans have to find a way to get an extra possession.
Yeah, and also you saw at the end of the half, right? You saw the Chargers be really aggressive, and they end up giving the Texans the ball back, and they give up that field goal, which was huge, right?
Yep.
For the momentum going into the second half. So I like that you're keeping an eye on the defense. Now, in the same light, so for my turn on this game, because I want to also weigh in on this game, I think the legs of Mahomes or Stroud is going to make the difference in the game.
So true.
I think that's where we're going to see either the best version of CJ that we've seen this year. Because by the way, I am still waiting for this, right? And it's there. It's there. I know it is. And I think if that becomes the best part of his game, this is where this Texans offense can be dangerous against this Chiefs defense. And obviously Mahomes, who I feel like, look, we very rarely have criticized his run game and his ability to, complete off-script plays and create the chaos he does. That's what Patrick Mahomes is. But I talked to somebody in Kansas City this morning, just about where they're at, because I was joking. I'm like, man, you guys haven't played football in 77 games, or 77 days. Like,
days. Yeah.
Right? I'm like, the last time the Kansas City Chiefs played a game, I had long hair. Like, Christmas. That's how long it's felt. Seriously, I've cut my hair since. I really have. But the person I was talking to was like, our locker room is so energetic right now that it's kind of been a gift for us, because obviously you have that appreciation factor, but it's like trying to cage a bunch of dogs that are just ready to get out and run. And so obviously the health that the Chiefs are coming into this game, they are all healthy. At this point is obviously could be the advantage. All right, so back to you. What else has your attention from this weekend's games? What else are you going to be watching?
I think the most underrated game this weekend, Diana, is the Los Angeles Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. I think no one's giving the Rams a chance to win. Did we see what Matthew Stafford did to that Vikings defense? Did we see what the Rams defense did to this Vikings offense? I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be a tight game, especially because it is supposed to snow in Philadelphia. And for Philly fans, they are hoping that Saquon Barkley does a Shady McCoy and goes off in the snow. Mm-hmm. But the number one thing I'm looking at, believe it or not, is how Jalen Hurts looks after his game last week. Look, the stats look good. 16 of 21, I think, threw for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 37 yards passing with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. I do not think that type of performance will win versus the Rams. Specifically, the Rams' defensive line. Look, I know the Philadelphia Eagles have all these all-pros and Pro Bowlers, but I do think that defensive coordinator Chris Shula will unleash this Rams defensive line. I think the biggest thing that you can do against Jalen Hurts is get pressure to him quickly. Not a lot of teams have been able to do that. But you get Kobe Turner, you get Jared Verse, you get Braden Fisk, you get all these young defensive linemen rolling. Now, the snow will help the offense in this game. So if it snows, that'll be a matchup to watch. But Jalen, to me, I think he's got to let it go. And when I say let it go, he's got to let those 50-50 balls to A.J. Brown, to Devontae Smith, to Dallas Goedert. He's got to play a little bit more calm in the pocket. I think he's just, if he does that, I mean, look, if on paper, if you're looking specifically at the Eagles offense and you're looking at the Rams defense, the Eagles offense has the edge in almost every major category. They ran for 319 yards last time on the Rams, right? I think the Rams are going to fix that. If I'm the Rams and I'm Chris Shula, the number one thing you have to do is make Jalen Hurts beat us somehow, some way. You know Saquon's going to get his yards, but you got to make Jalen Hurts beat you.
Okay, so with that in mind, because we talk a lot about Jalen and the things he does well and the things that he has struggled with from what you've seen when you're watching him. What do you want to see from him that tells you, okay, they address this? Because remember after that game where A.J. Brown was all upset about, he basically called it out. It was like the passing game was the problem.
Yeah.
It was after the Panthers game, and then the next game against the Steelers, boom, voila, there it was. Right, we saw it. And now we're back to A.J. reading books because he's trying not to say what he said last time, right? That was his, in my opinion, that was his way of dealing with it of, look, last time I talked about it and I got myself in trouble, I'm just going to sit here and read. So just give me something I can watch from Jalen this weekend that tells you, like, okay, all right, they address this, and that's not going to be the story of this game.
Well, I think number one is how quickly he gets the ball out. Jalen is known around the league to hold on to the ball a little bit longer because, one, he has the best offensive line in football. Two, to allow separation. If he is decisive with where he is going with the football early in this game, that tells me he's seeing it well. If he's able to use his feet and scramble around and to gain yards with his feet on actual drop back passes, I'm good with that too. Look for a heavy dose of RPOs to get Jalen into a rhythm. And I think that's what Kellen Moore needs to do, right? He has to get Jalen into a rhythm throwing the football. They only threw it 21 times in this past game. I think they're going to have to throw it more than this. But if you get him into a rhythm and you get him comfortable against this pass rush, I think he'll have a good game.
Yeah, I do think when you touch on the protection, they obviously had a field day last week, this Rams defense against a Vikings offensive line that just didn't really show up. And look, Sam was holding the ball a lot as well. But obviously you're facing the best offensive line in football. All right, Lions, you're close. So I do think it's going to be a different game plan. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this Rams team is going to keep on fighting because, man, I can't say it enough. Sean McVay can coach his booty off. They will have a damn good plan. So speaking of the Lions, my next one is for the Lions-Commanders game. I think the red zone touchdowns are going to be the area that we're going to be talking about on Monday. And essentially, who doesn't kick field goals wins this game. I think I know it sounds basic.
I love that. No,
right?
It's not basic at all because the Commanders go for fourth down every single time.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Well, what about Dan Campbell, right? Yeah. So you've got, you said, like, yeah. So it's like you have two teams who you don't know what the heck you know what they're going to do on fourth down. And how is that going to affect the game and the outcome? And are they going to change the way they do things? Or are they going to stick with what they're comfortable doing?
I think they're going to stick with what they're comfortable doing. I think that, Dan Campbell got in a little bit of hot water last year against the San Francisco 49ers for those two fourth down going for it conversions, not kicking field goals, and they didn't get them, right? So it's like live by the sword, die by the sword. I don't see the Lions switching. And quite honestly, the Commanders probably are going to feel like they need to steal a possession or hold on to the football because of how well this Lions offense is playing. This Lions offense is like top 3 in every major category. This Commanders defense is very high numbers in every major defensive category. So Lions are going to score points. I just don't know who's going to score more.
So you kind of agree with me, right? Like it's really going to come down to that.
It's not basic at all. It's like the most important stat.
And speaking of, our Zach Kiefer wrote a great feature on Dan Campbell. I've read a lot of Dan Campbell stories. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've seen a lot of interviews about him, and I've known him for a long time. And I thought I kind of knew what I needed to know about Dan Campbell, but Zach Kiefer did a really good job getting you information about his process and actually how he's affecting this offense. It's not all Ben Johnson, so make sure you check that out over at The Athletic. All right, your last one.
Staying in the game. Staying in the game. Rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. How do you play on the road, hostile environment? Because if it's any indication that your last game where you completely balled out in your first ever playoff game, dude's going to be so good. I'm excited about it. Look, we make a lot and we talk a lot about Aaron Glenn's defense being beat up. Aaron Glenn showed that, hey, he can win with really anyone. I feel like they're going to play man-to-man against Scary Terry. I feel like they're going to play man-to-man against Brown. Austin Eckler, going to have to get loose. Jaden Daniels, using your legs when stuff's not there. I think this is going to be a different style test. It's inside. It's temperature controlled. It's really, really loud. Like really loud. You're probably going to be down by 2 scores in this game. Do you fold under pressure or do you lead your team back to victory? I'm looking at you, Jaden Daniels.
All right, well, we will see if we'll be talking about any upsets. I feel like the way we've been talking about these games, I feel like we're both leaning towards the favorites headed into the weekend, but it never works that way. So we will see who will be the underdog to come through here and maybe shock the world. And then we'll see if this Ravens-Bills game turns out to be the game of the decade. That's what I've been saying. I did a radio show today, and the host was saying it's the game of his life. I was like, oh my goodness.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see how this thing turns out. Either way, we can't wait to talk about all of this next week. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for watching this. Subscribe. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, make sure you go see this show because I've heard it's a different experience when you watch us. I don't know if that means it's a good thing, but people that have watched it have said they love it. So check us out there. Remember, you can also check out your YouTube just on your television. You don't even have to watch it on your phone. And make sure you subscribe to our Scoop City newsletter for everything you need to know about the NFL, especially during this coaching cycle. You're going to want to know all the news in the morning in your email inbox. All right, that'll do it for us here on Scoop City, guys. We will see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. Tag me next time.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.